Welcome to KCD. I would like to open with our first talk, which is on the topic that is very interesting. It's called Prometheus on steroids, how to go from zero to hero with open source integrations. And our first speaker today is Emanuela Zaccone. She's a senior product manager at Sysdig. You must know Sysdig if you are working in the cloud in Kubernetes. So I think she will introduce herself on her own, and I'm giving the word to, it's all yours.
Thank you. And you can hear me well, right? Fantastic. And you see, the level of energy is actually good. I mean, you're pretty awake. So yeah, first thing first, let me introduce. I know just few people here. So I'm Emanuela. As we were saying, I work at Sysdig, but there I'm the product manager for the monitor product, but also for Pronged.io, which you will learn about today because it's our open source catalog of Prometheus integration. Speaking of which, we are now going to have 20 minutes talking about the project, and then, of course, we can have question and answer. But, well, I take for granted that we all know about Prometheus, more or less, since we are here. But, you know, just to go for a very, very quick recap of why we should care about it. So Prometheus actually is an open source monitoring system, is exactly what brought metrics and the ability to monitor everything in cloud native environments. Is pretty cool for various reasons, but long story short, it has a fantastic data model, it has a very flexible language, ProQL. I always struggle with that, but trust me, it's very flexible and pretty cool. And it has this fantastic dynamic service discovery. Keep that in mind because that's exactly where the magic happens and what let us build our Prometheus integrations catalog. Now, just three things. If you just had to keep three things in mind, especially for those of you who are not too much familiar with Prometheus, just three things to remember why this is cool and why we should care. I will say, well, first of all, the powerful data model that lies behind that, and as we were saying, the query language that Prometheus leverage is really flexible, is fantastic because it lets you literally query big amount of data in a very easy way. So it's pretty flexible and particularly adapt for the complex environment that we have to deal with when it comes about Kubernetes. The second thing, and this related to the first one, is that it can handle high cardinality data. So it can handle, for example, you might have several instances of your application running in different environments, and all of them are producing metrics. So the ability to be able to combine them, even with multi-label and everything, is one of the things that made Prometheus really particularly adapt and great when it comes about monitor cloud-native environments. And the third, and the most important thing to me, at least the one I care more about, is that Prometheus was born open source. Actually, it's the second graduated project from CNCF after Kubernetes. No wonder, because one gave us the ability to, be extremely flexible. The other one gave us the ability to control and monitor all of this complexity. But the cool thing about Prometheus is that behind it, it has a very, very active community. It's strongly community-driven. And when I say community-driven, I don't just mean that there are lots of developers contributing to it, lots of maintainers and everything, but also companies, even us as company, invest in trying to build something on top of it, contribute to it. So it's a particularly alive and kicking project, let's say. There is no supply chain kind of issue there. There is no issue, there is no problem that nobody's going to contribute to it or is going to die. On the contrary, it still keep being, very, very often updated, very much alive and everything. But even like this, so this is why it's cool, this is why we all use it, this is why we leverage it. But there are also reasons why and things that we still need to make it work properly, to make the most out of it. And that's exactly the point today. Because, when you got Prometheus there, you install Prometheus, it's up and running, that's amazing. But still, you need metrics there. I mean, you need something to monitor your application, and it doesn't provide metrics. You need, assuming that you want to leverage exporters, can you trust the repository that you find online? Are those secure? Okay, I might be paranoid about security, I know, but that's relevant. I need to be sure that the things I'm going to install are trustworthy. And also, I mean, that's fantastic that I can build tons of things on top of it, but it's also complicated. Do I really want to build all of my dashboards from scratch, all of my alerts from scratch? It's too much when you just think like, I want to leverage this thing to monitor all that is running on my environments. That was one of the things that actually moved us to try and build on top of this. Just to explain it with a metaphor, no? Imagine that you got this fantastic apartment in the fanciest zone of the city. It's fantastic. You enter, they gave you the key, you open the door, the apartment is amazing, but it's empty. That's exactly the feeling I had the first time I installed Prometheus. I was like, oh my God, I made it. Okay, and now I was like, okay, it's working, I can see it's working, but I got tons of things, like the hell that we were seeing before on the chart, tons of applications that I still need to monitor. How do I leverage this thing to monitor all of these applications? So it's a fantastic thing, but as I will do with my apartment, the first thing I will need will be furniture. In my case, those will be metrics for my applications, alerts, dashboards, and so on. It might be MongoDB, it might be Redis, Nginx, Calico, whatever you can think that you might have on your environment. That's exactly how it is supposed to be. This is the kind of, out of the metaphor, the kind of situation that I want to have in front of me when I try to monitor my environment every day. So that's why we thought, okay, we've been around, we've been searching for exporters, we know that there are some orphan projects, we know that there are some lack, we want to give back to the community. How can we do that? We are using Prometheus. How can we give back to the Prometheus community with something that is useful and ready to use? That's how the idea of Bronche.io came out, because we said, okay, let's start building exporters that include metrics so that you don't have to write them by your own and get crazy, but ensuring that they work and everything. We wanted to provide ready-to-use dashboards, so just one click and deploy and use and download the Grafana dashboard. And we wanted to leverage Prometheus alerts, because let's be honest, when it comes about monitoring, these are the three things that we all care about. Being able to monitor, see what is happening, and be notified about when something changes. So we started building this catalog of integration that are curated, which means that we kind of select them, filter them out, documented, and best of all, they are supported. Because one of the things we really, really struggled more with when we were investigating and trying out different exporters was that they were abandoned in many cases. So you have an issue, but you even submit a PR, but nobody's there to read it. So because then you find out that the project was abandoned like 4 years ago. So that's an issue, especially for us, especially considering the pace of change of what we see and what we work every day with. And that's why we thought, okay, let's start building this catalog and let's start, putting the word out as we are doing so that everybody can actually contribute and keep increasing that and keep adding more and more so that everyone who today needs to install Prometheus and need to start monitoring Nginx, Redis, Istio and everything can just click and get started in 5 minutes instead of being there and be the artisan behind all of the work for that. We want it because, Bronche.io was born inside Sysdig, so inside a security company. We wanted to be sure that people could trust these exporters. That was another big thing. We don't want just people to find it or to contribute to it or to be part of this story. It's open source, but let's make also safe. Let's make it secure for everyone. Because at the beginning I said, companies are looking at Prometheus, companies are using Prometheus. So eventually you might want to need to use one of the exporters in your company or everyday life, and you need to be sure you're not breaking anything. You need to have trust in what you're doing. Another thing that we were observing in this area was that there was an absolute mess around how to deploy these exporters. Everybody was doing as they wished, basically. So we said, okay, let's try. We got lots of open source projects and protocols and standards that we can leverage. Let's make it easy. Let's use, for example, Helm charts and make easy to deploy all of these exporters. And last thing that we wanted to focus on was let's not have people get crazy to understand, okay, so now I got Redis. What are the relevant metrics? How do I build them? Let's give people and developers a sort of starting kit, like these are, according to us and by usage, the 10 more relevant metrics that you might want to monitor on Prometheus using these exporters, and make them ready instead of having you build one per each and one per time. So that was kind of the rationale behind that, and how the project started, and it's out there, so everybody can contribute to that. But let me show you concretely what I meant. For example, when I say make it easy to deploy that, I was mentioning the Helm chart before. This is, for example, the page you will see if you click on the Elasticsearch tile for the exporter. As you can see, installation is just an Helm chart. Okay, considering the prerequisite, but then you keep it and you're done in a few minutes, literally, like this. Trust me, if you ever try to build on your own an exporter on Prometheus, you know how much pain this solution cut out. I did it, I regret deeply every time, but this is exactly the point, cutting out that pain so that you can focus on monitor that instead of focus on building that exporter. Second thing, I was mentioning the dashboard. One of the things that we discovered, because it was a journey also for us, people said, oh, okay, that's fantastic that you're giving me the exporter that is secure, that you're even giving me a sort of starting set of metrics to monitor. But still, I need to build a dashboard, which means I need to put effort there, with PromQL and all the stuff, and be sure to have picked the right representation and everything. It might sound, if you work every day with Prometheus, might sound like, okay, well, I can do that. Of course I can do that. I know how to handle that. If you're just trying to set a goal up, or if you're looking for the best and fastest way to have it ready, then we wanted to give an answer to that kind of need. And that's, for example, why we decided to create predefined dashboard that can be used in Grafana. So you just literally click download and you have your Grafana dashboard ready. And just even there, get started in a few minutes. Then, of course, you can create them, modify them, all the things that we know we can actually do by manipulating all the metrics that we got from Prometheus. But again, be ready to start instead of losing time just trying to understand how to do that thing. And same goes with the alert. For example, with the alert, you can see we got or a direct import, like importing to Prometheus, and you got ready with your, in this case, the example was Nginx alerts, or even for the details, just copy the snippet and put it there, and you're ready to go. This was exactly the kind of approach we wanted to have there. Like, okay, how can we make developers' life easy? How can we make our life even easier? Because it was born as an experience also for us, because we were seeing the pain of building this every single day. Now imagine one thing is that I got few applications, another one is using this at a company or enterprise level and think, oh wow, I got tons of things here to monitor. I got tons of things here to build. And I don't want to start from scratch every single time without being sure that that thing is working. Or even worse, and it happened, monitoring the wrong thing. So not getting the right metrics, or even, struggling with PromQL because who knows what we were seeing there and was not correct, and we spent half day just to understand how that worked. So long story short, the idea was let's try to shorten also the learning curve. Because if everyone uses Prometheus, eventually they might want to focus on monitor, not on learning all the stuff that comes along. That was exactly the idea. Let's cut out all of these, I wouldn't say waste of time, but time needed to learn things that eventually after 5 minutes you will have forgotten. And it doesn't mean that it was easy also for us. I mean, this is what the open source project is, what the Prometheus.io catalog is. But we learned a lot of lessons along the way, not just technical ones, like the one I was mentioning, like why we should use Grafana, why we should use Helm charts, and so on and so forth, but also literally organizational, I would say, company one. For example, the first and biggest lesson we learned, we wanted to cut out vendor content. Yes, Prometheus.io was born inside Sysdig, But on the other side, we wanted to be purely open source because we wanted to give back to the open source community. That's exactly what makes powerful all of the projects like this. Prometheus is open source. We wanted to be full open source. First, because people got confused. It might sound trivial, but it's true. Because if you come and see a project that says, I'm an open source project, and then you see a brand behind that, you start thinking, okay, so I'm confused. Is this an open source project I can contribute to, I can be part of, or is it a company thing? And it was open source. So the first thing we did was cutting out all the vendor content and make it purely open source. It was one of the most frequent feedback we had. Second thing, I mean, this event is part of CNCF series of events and everything, and we know, and we mentioned at the beginning, we also saw the complex map that we were seeing before. There are lots of projects out there. Come on, leverage them, use them for what is worth us. It's not a case that we picked mChart. It's not a case that we picked Grafana. It's not a case that, of course, we keep building on Prometheus. Those are amazing. Let's make this even more. Let's put the speed on them. And another thing was, let's use only curated content because there is lots of noise. If you ever tried to look for Prometheus exporters or all that comes along, the quantity of time that you will need to just understand, is this maintained in this, is this still support, is this secure, does this work with the latest version of Prometheus? There are so many things in between, so much noise, that at the end of the day, you will have spent one whole day just to understand if there is something out there that might be useful. And we really wanted to reduce this noise because we know how hard it was also for us to hear all of that noise around. And last and most important thing, I know sound obvious, especially in this context, but listening to the community is never a waste of time. It's something we all take for granted, like, of course we are talking about open source, we will listen. You know better than me that it's not always like that. So if we are where we are, if we build the catalog as it is and people is contributing because they believe it might have a value there, it's because we listen to them. It's because when they said, okay, please, it's amazing you give us metrics, but give us also dashboard that we can use. And we pick Grafana because it's the standard out there. Everybody uses that. Please give us alerts because there are lots of potential ones. But really, we need a selection. We need to filter out. All of these are feedback that came from the community and keep coming, and hopefully also from you too. So that was basically the idea behind that. This was born, now it has a few years actually. Right now, there are almost 50 integrations, I guess. Yeah, all of them coming with alerts, dashboards, and everything. So I really invite you to visit it if you want to contribute. I'm more than happy. If you want to discuss it, I'm here. But we really wanted to bring and tell you today about our little piece of contribution to make even bigger and cooler what we are already building on Prometheus. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are doing great time-wise. We have enough space for a question. So the most popular question seems to be, how can I contribute, which is great. For example, I want to upload my dashboard. Okay, so we are now trying to better understand all the process behind that, but definitely I guess we got contacts there, or we can talk about it later. So let's keep in touch about it because we are exactly defining how we can improve this process. So you're definitely more than welcome there. Let's talk about it. Sorry. Well, the next is not a question, it's an information. So.
I don't speak that, but I understood Wi-Fi, so I kind of understood
the second corrects says the correct password for Wi-Fi, but that's nothing to do with it.
We don't have an exporter for that, I'm sorry. Not yet, who can tell?
The next question, are you using the Open Telemetry standard?
That's a fantastic one, because yes, we are starting work on that too. Because that's one of the things that we have been talking about, because we were like, okay, it's all about Prometheus, but we also have customers, or people starting to ask about, do you also support OpenTelemetry metrics and everything? So yes, definitely we started also working towards that. So definitely we support that. That's the short answer, and we will do more and more.
What do you see as disadvantages on going open source?
Where do I start? How much time do I have? No, seriously speaking. No, there are. I can think to three things, at least thinking to our experiences. Disadvantage sometimes is not that easy to reach, to really effectively reach the community. We all love open source, but we all talking about it. So there is a lot of noise out there, and it's not easy. And if you ever did that, you know it's like this. It's not always that easy to reach the right audience. So to be heard and, to have the time to prove what you're doing or to show what you're doing, as we did today, is not always that easy. And that's an issue, not just because we want to be heard, all of us want to, but because being heard means also could mean find new contributors, new people that believe in the project like you. So literally the people that will be part of the story with you, that will make it advance. So that's the first thing. The second thing as disadvantage might be that sometimes, especially when it is noticed by customers and similars, there is still this sort of legacy of people asking, but can I trust it since it is open source? And that would open a completely different chapter. But there still are people in companies asking this, especially people who are not at our level, but at higher or decision level that don't know that much eventually about that. So that's why, for example, we invest so much in saying, yes, we secure our repositories. Yes, we don't break anything if you download the exporters. Because it's still a discussion out there. I know, sound outdated, but it's still there. Sometimes it's still there, and we all have to deal with that. And third and last thing is that sometimes some projects, even cool one, you can see that they simply die. And that said, I mean, we all saw that. We know that sometimes projects just born in our spare time, or it's something that you work on while you are at the company, and then you leave the company, and then the project just ends. But it's really kind of sad. It's not because of moral reasons, of course it's sad, but because there is lots. Sometimes there are projects that are really, really good, and just because of the first thing I said, there is too much noise, or people leaving, or not too much investment, just got lost. So these are the things, and sometimes we saw things we would have loved to work with that were just dead. So that's kind of a disadvantage. What else? Even open mic question.
Any more questions? How much is sysdig using promcat.io internally?
Every single day. I mean, it's let me give you the full picture. We have also integrations that we leverage in the enterprise product. So basically, the integration that you see on promcat.io are the same one that we also leverage for our customers, so that we also use in the enterprise product. But definitely, that's exactly what we use every single day. That's why I told you we know it's secure, we know it works, and everything. Right now, the catalog of integration that we got on the enterprise side is a little bigger. Some of them eventually will come there, but more or less there is basically parity, because that's exactly our wheelhouse, let's say. Or sometimes, just to give you an example, a concrete one, sometimes you start with something on the enterprise side, like we just worked on a Windows Prometheus bundle that is basically done there was life before Kubernetes, so for customers that needed to monitor their VM. And we bundled together the Windows exporter, the official one, with a Prometheus server. So when customers deploy them with a classical wizard, Windows wizard, they will deploy both the exporter and the Prometheus server all together. And we found out that there is not that much about that, for example, in the open source world. So we will bring that project, the community version of that exporter, also to Pronket.io. And we were surprised when Microsoft at KubeCon said, we want to invest more in our Windows exporter. Happy for us, because we are going to be there. But that's an example of how the two things, the two sides of the story kind of interact there.
Perfect. So, and the very popular question is, do you plan to include also Terraform code for deploy?
Surprise. Actually, we got two legs in SysDig. Secure, which is usually what people knows us for, and monitor, which is, I might be biased because I'm a product manager in the monitor side, but monitor was the original product. When SysDig was born doing monitoring and starting building there. Then kind of naturally come all the secure side, because okay, you want to monitor, but you also want to leverage what you're monitoring to secure what you're doing. And so definitely there are two products. We got customers in both. So we got customers that are secure only, customers that are monitor only, customers that are platform, so that they have both. As you can imagine, it really depends on their needs. But SysDig has these two souls inside. And this is true also for open source. We got Pronket.io, which are the Prometheus exporters born inside Monitor. And we got Falco, that does runtime security. And this is actually a CNCF project that does and cover all the security side. So there is lots ongoing in there. Hopefully I answered your question.
Operational monitoring is not super related to security. Why did SysDig decide to work on this project?
That was the one.
Yeah.
This was the one.
I was asked to make people aware of the workshop that is starting in 3 minutes at 10. It's called Cube Farm, Bare Metal Kubernetes, Cube Farm, Bare Metal Kubernetes, prakticky a v oleji. How would I translate it? It's like a bare metal Kubernetes inside a Kubernetes. Well, it doesn't make sense in English, but anyway.
I guess aside from me and a few other people, I guess everybody would understand.
Yeah, okay. So it is a practical workshop about how to define the whole data center in few hundred lines of code using open source tools. Basic building blocks will be Cube Farm, Cubeg Helm, LTSP, DNS Mask, and more. Everything will be done on the server, on the spot. It is an in-person workshop starting at 10. So if you are interested, it is room 1. So if you want to go, please use the opportunity. So sorry for the plug.
And thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.